He used to be there next to someone and still felt completely alone, not just once, but many times. He talked, smiled, did everything right, and still felt like he didn't exist. In the previous video, I told you why many older men choose to live alone, not because they gave up on love, but because they no longer wanted to stay in empty relationships. And this time, I'll tell you about the quiet reasons, the things no one writes about, no one asks, and no one really wants to hear men admit. He doesn't talk about the divorce anymore, not because it didn't hurt, but because he's learned. Pain, when dismissed, hurts even more than the first time he was left behind. He didn't scream, "I don't love anymore." He didn't build walls around his heart. He doesn't hate women. He just stopped. Stopped sending messages he knew wouldn't be met with genuine care. Stopped joining conversations where every word he said was just to keep the peace. Stopped trying to understand someone while never being understood himself. He started sitting alone and felt relieved. No more pretending. No more saying, "I'm fine," just so others wouldn't worry. He no longer walks into a restaurant hoping someone would hear what he couldn't say out loud. No longer waits for a hug that could melt away the exhaustion. No longer signs onto any commitment, just to feel like he has someone. He doesn't need to say, "I've changed," because every small action of his says it all. And no one asks why he doesn't love anymore. He doesn't explain either, because if they have to ask, they've never seen the eyes of a man who's broken in silence. If you've ever gone through that, ever felt yourself disappearing in a relationship that seemed fine, then this is the video for you. And if what I just shared made you pause, just for a few seconds, because you saw a part of yourself in it, leave a comment. It doesn't have to be long, just real. Something like, "I've healed, but I haven't forgotten." And if you want to keep hearing stories like this, stick around. Subscribe if you feel like it, because here, we don't speak to make noise. We speak so we don't feel alone anymore. He doesn't talk about the divorce anymore, not because it doesn't affect him, but because it stayed too long in his heart, as a silent kind of pain. After the breakup, people asked him the usual questions. "You okay? Thinking of dating again?" Time heals everything, right? But no one truly asked, "What did you have to endure before you let go?" Outsiders were quick to label him. He's afraid of commitment. He's avoiding responsibility. He's not strong enough to start over. They called it giving up, but they didn't see how long he fought, how much he compromised, how many tiny wounds he swallowed, just to hold on to something that, in the end, was no longer his. And when he chose to walk away, they didn't understand, because men aren't allowed to fall apart, aren't allowed to be tired, aren't allowed to need rest. He didn't leave in anger. There was no big argument, no movie-like, tearful ending, just a normal morning, where he woke up early, made coffee, and realized he no longer knew what he was living for. The seat across from him was empty. No one asked if he slept well. No more text saying, "Did you eat?" But strangely, he didn't feel a void. He just felt light, not because he doesn't love anymore, but because he doesn't want to lose himself again. He started avoiding things, avoiding warm on the outside, hollow on the inside conversations, avoiding heavy dates with the question, "What are we?" Avoiding even the feeling of starting all over again. People called it running away, but for him, it was awakening. For the first time in years, he wasn't chasing anyone's expectations. He no longer played the role. The man who has to be strong enough, kind enough, patient enough to hold everything together, even as he was breaking inside. Now, he doesn't make weekend plans, doesn't think about couple getaways, or buying another set of mugs. He makes coffee for one, reads without rushing, turns off his phone on Friday night, and feels an odd kind of peace. No one asks why, and he doesn't need to explain, because if they have to ask, then maybe they've never seen the eyes of a man who's learned to stay silent just to survive. He doesn't hate love. He's just no longer willing to gamble his peace again, because now, to him, peace isn't some vague feeling. It's a boundary, a limit, something sacred earned through years of heartbreak, endurance, and effort. And once he's found it, he knows no one is worth losing it forever again. After everything, he doesn't say much anymore. Not because he no longer feels, but because he's learned some things are better kept to yourself, so they don't get hurt again. People think he's avoiding life, but what they don't know is silence is the only way he can protect the peace he fought so hard to reclaim. Why doesn't he go back? Why does he choose to be alone? It's not because he hates love. It's just that he's no longer willing to gamble with himself again. And here are the 13 real reasons, the things he doesn't say, but always carries quietly. 1. He's too tired to explain anymore. He used to try to explain everything. Why he needed quiet. Why he wasn't good at expressing emotions. Why he wasn't always available the way people wanted. But the more he spoke, the more misunderstood he became. People didn't listen to understand, they listened to argue. And he got tired. Tired enough to realize sometimes silence is the only way to keep something for yourself. 2. He doesn't want to risk his freedom again. Freedom, to him now, isn't about being careless. It's about being real. It's the right to be quiet when he's tired. To not have to explain every little choice. To not be judged for doing what he loves. After years of living for others, now he just wants to live for himself. And if love means giving that up, then he'll keep his freedom. 3. The court taught him enough. Divorce isn't just a breakup. It's a long, exhausting, cold process. It's being judged by people who have no idea how hard he tried. It's losing the right to see his child every day. It's losing both his dignity and any sense of fairness. Since walking out of that courtroom, he no longer sees marriage as a home, but as a chessboard where the loser loses everything. 4. The scars remain even if no one sees them. He didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't complain. But that doesn't mean he didn't hurt. Some wounds leave no visible marks. Just him and the sleepless nights. Just him and the loneliness inside a relationship that once felt so right. Now, he's calm. But deep down, there's still a scar he doesn't want anyone touching again. 5. He now values peace more than romance. He used to love romantic gestures, surprise messages, roses, hugs from behind. But now, he just wants a quiet evening, a morning where he doesn't have to explain anything, a long day where he doesn't have to stretch himself to keep the peace. Romance once made his heart flutter, but peace is what kept him alive. And now, peace is the gift he dares not take for granted. 6. He doesn't play emotional chess anymore. He used to know all the moves in love. When to text, when to be silent, when to act busy to get attention. But he got tired. Love is not a battle, not a game of tactics. Now, he chooses truth. No yelose, no testing, no mind games. If love can't begin with honesty, then it shouldn't begin at all. 7. He doesn't want to lose himself again. There was a time he nearly forgot who he was. Let go of friends. Let go of little habits. Let go of the things that made him feel alive, just to fit better with someone else. When that relationship ended, it took him a long time to find himself again. So now, he reminds himself, if love requires him to become someone else, it's not love meant for him. 8. Red flags no longer need analysis, just an exit. Before, whenever something felt off, he would ask himself, am I just being too sensitive? She probably didn't mean it. Let it go. Next time will be better. Not anymore. Now, just one uneasy feeling, one comment that makes him shrink, and he walks away. No drama, no arguments, no regret, because this time he stands with his instincts. 9. He doesn't want to raise anyone anymore, especially emotionally. He no longer has the patience to be the love teacher. He doesn't want to play mentor in a relationship. He once tried to explain what respect looks like, why silent treatment isn't love, what peace means, and how it's not the same as boredom. And then he realized, love isn't a classroom, and men aren't meant to carry the emotional weight for both people. If someone isn't ready to grow together, he's not taking the lead again. 10. He doesn't miss walking on eggshells. He once walked into his own home with his heart racing not from joy, but from fear. Fear of that look, fear of the atmosphere, fear that one wrong word would start a war for no reason. He learned how to choose his words carefully, how to hold back to keep the peace, how to normalize the tension. But at some point, he realized, living with someone you love shouldn't feel like walking on eggshells, Because if you have to tiptoe too much, then it's no longer home. 11. Compromising just to avoid loneliness is now the most dangerous thing. He once thought, it's better to have someone than to be alone. So he compromised. On the little things, then on the big things. Eventually, even he couldn't tell if he was really living, or just existing next to a stranger. Now he knows. Being lonely with the wrong person is far worse than being alone. So if compromise means avoiding loneliness, he'd rather face it head-on and walk through it on his own 2 feet. DIVOCED. Love doesn't always equal loyalty. He used to believe that if love was real, betrayal couldn't happen. But reality taught him otherwise. Some people still say, I love you, still hold him at night, still call him the one, while their hearts are somewhere else. Betrayal doesn't always happen with the body. It happens when someone stops listening, stops caring, and starts blaming his pain on him. Now, he doesn't just want love. He wants loyalty, the kind someone gives even when no one's forcing them to. 13. Most of all, he's learned to trust himself more than promises. Back then, he believed in the words, I'm not like the others. In, this time will be different. But misplaced trust, over and over, eventually opened his eyes. Now, he trusts what he feels. How someone treats him when no one's watching. Consistency, not sweet words, whispered in weak moments. He no longer believes in, I love you. He believes in how someone makes him feel safe. After all the unspoken reasons, what remains isn't pain. It's a quiet awakening. Not everyone who's been through heartbreak turns bitter. Some people just become clearer. After that divorce, he didn't become a cold man. He became someone who knows exactly where his boundaries are, who's allowed close, and what no longer deserves forgiveness. He didn't shut his heart. He just made his own rules for that door. And if someone can't enter with sincerity, they don't need to knock anymore. He used to believe that love meant opening up unconditionally, that forgiveness was a sign of mature love, that if someone hurt him, he should be generous enough to understand why. But now it's different. Now he understands. Forgiveness cannot be endlessly offered to those who never learn how to hold it. Now he doesn't need someone to fully understand him. He needs someone who won't dismiss the limits built from a complete collapse. He's not bitter. He's clear. Not distant, just calm. Not afraid of love, just no longer blind. He no longer hopes love will be an escape from loneliness. He hopes, if it comes, it will be a space where both people can be themselves, not characters playing a part. And if that's not possible, then the silence he has now is still kind enough to keep him from losing himself again. He no longer needs someone to make him happy. He just needs no one to make him feel like he has to tense up just to keep the peace, because in the end, the biggest lesson wasn't about the one who left. It was about himself, a man who finally understands he doesn't have to live to be loved. He lives to be himself whole, awake and free. If love comes, it must come with respect, not possession disguised as sweetness, not limits dressed up as care, not something that makes him shrink or twist himself to fit someone else's expectations. If love comes, it must not ask him to start from scratch, as if he never had a past. It must be gentle enough to understand that every scar in him is part of the man he's become. Love this time, if it comes, must walk in with respect, without judgment, without forcing him to explain why he's quiet, why he's careful, why he no longer falls easily like before. And if love doesn't come, he'll still be okay. Because for the first time in his life, he doesn't need anyone to feel whole. He's not waiting for someone to bring him happiness. He no longer lives to the rhythm of someone else's heartbeat. Peace is no longer fragile. It's a choice, and he has chosen it mindfully, intentionally, and without regret. Not everyone who walks away from pain becomes cold. Some people just become calmer, clearer, and for the first time in their lives, they feel enough, even when they're alone. If you're living in that silence too, leave a comment. I'm not angry, I just understand now. And if this video made you feel even a little lighter, send it to another man. He might also be trying to stay silent, in pain.